Welcome everyone to today's meeting of the Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle dedicated to really wonderful conversations, taking up topics from any one of the myriad traditions that hold the wisdom of the world. And all of us have something of that within ourselves. And that's what we count on us all bringing forth in the conversations. So we know it's there. We have a topic this week that follows the first three topics of the year very well, as the Carving Your Statue quote that is getting read as a keynote each week this year. The idea of self-crafting is our theme for all of 2021. So that was the first week of the year. And then the second week of the year, to commence our work, we had the theme of inaugurating our work or consecrating our work before we begin it. Then here we are, we're about to begin and we're faced with the empty page. And that is the theme that we had last week that Janine, who's with us right now, so beautifully took up from the literary tradition. And as we face this empty page, it seems to be a very common phenomenon to be struck with a certain sense of overwhelm or fear. And this week's theme, in fact, is facing our fears. And there are a lot of fears that we can face in addition to an empty page. Today, we're so fortunate to have with us as our presenter, Professor Ramdas Lamb from UH Manoa. He not only is a professor of religious studies, he is also someone who has personally deeply engaged in an ascetic tradition as a sadhu. He was in India, living the life of a sadhu or a holy man, very ascetic kind of lifestyle for nearly a decade. Fortunately for us, he decided to come back to Hawaii. And so we get the advantage of being able to hear so much of his life wisdom and from that Hindu ascetic tradition. So Ramdas, let me hand it over to you now.
Great. Okay, so first of all, Renee, thank you, and thank to all of you. There's a Hindu concept. It's called satsang. Okay, and the Buddhists call it the sangha, right? The gathering of the community. But in India, it's satsang. Sat means truth. So really, it's the community talking about truth. And this is satsang, what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. This is really important satsang. And we're always was taught that your daily life should be your practice. Everything that you do is your practice. And when you are together with others talking about things that are essential, talking about things that are meaningful and spiritual, that is satsang. And that is practice. And so we're all blessed whenever we have the opportunity in our days to kind of stop what we're doing and simply focus on what is meaningful, focus on what is truthful, focus on what is real. It's a blessing for everybody involved. So it's as much of a, I feel as fortunate as anyone to be here. And to be able to participate with you because you're giving me an opportunity for satsang. Okay. So I want to start out, we're talking about fear, right? Facing our fears. And Renee and I were talking a little bit earlier and the topic of Martin Luther King came up in his last speech. And so I want to read the last paragraph of the last speech that he gave before he was assassinated. The night before he was assassinated. And he says, well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter to me now because I've seen the mountaintop and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked it over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight, and I'm not worried about anything, and I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. This was the last thing that he said, essentially, to people, his last public statements before he was killed. I think he knew what was happening. I think he knew that the end was near of this physical body, and I think he was telling us all to not worry, that it's all good. Everything that happens for a purpose, and he did a lot, and he's expecting others to also, and that's what we should all do. Every day should be something important. A common saying in India is, work as though you shall live forever, but live as though you shall die tomorrow. So that means whatever you make it good, make it last forever, right? Whether it's a relationship, whether it's showing people love and caring, whether it's writing something or saying something, whatever it is that you do it with the idea that it will always be there for somebody on some level. And so it should be good and it should be great. But as far as our lives, all we have is today. Tomorrow never exists. It only exists as a theory, not as a reality, because reality is just today. I studied a tribal group in central India, the Gonds. It's one of the largest tribes in India. They don't have a future tense in their language. It's just they have now. They have past, and then they have now. Past happened, and we can talk about it, and there's now. And I asked them, I was sitting with one of the elders one day, and I said, so how do you talk about tomorrow? He says, when tomorrow comes, we talk about it. Right? But it's not now, so why worry about it? Right? So I got to thinking about fear. Where does the fear come? My wife is a labor and delivery nurse. So there's two things that children show fears. Two fears that pretty much all infants show. Loud noises. Like once they've kind of settled down and they've stopped crying, if there's a loud noise, it freaks them out. And fear of falling. If you hold them up and you kind of drop them like that. Those two things, most infants fear. And both of it, what is it? It's fear of the unknown, right? And then what's interesting is when an infant is about 6 months old, is when they start fearing people they don't know. Prior to that, they don't. Prior to that, they can, baby, you can hand a baby, have a 2-month-old and I'll hand it to you, and then you can hug it or hold it for a while and hand it off, and the baby doesn't know the difference. But at about 6 months older, they start recognizing, and then they start fearing those who they don't know. That fear is the fear that later on gets warped into racism and sexism and all the other things. So it begins with a natural fear, but it gets morphed. And so we want to talk about how that gets morphed and how we can overcome that morphing. So I'm a little kid now, and I fear those who I don't recognize. And then later on, what happens? And then we are told, oh, don't talk to strangers, right? Or don't do this. And so the society enforces it. And then later on, and in many societies, it becomes tribalism. There's our tribe, and then there's your tribe, right? And my tribe is how my survival is. And in those places where there are tribes are everything, the tribe and the clan. There's my tribe and there's your tribe. And my tribe supports me, my tribe will defend me. So somebody from another tribe, I don't know, we can't trust them, right? And so we have the whole Romeo and Juliet situation, and then we have tribes fighting, the Hutus and the Tutsis, right, in Rwanda, and everywhere we go, these tribes, and then those tribes morph into races and ethnic groups and religions and fear of the other. And fear of the other is insane. And that is probably, I think, the greatest fear that we need to overcome. And especially, you know, we're honoring Martin Luther King Jr.'s life this weekend, and he really sought to talk to us about that, and he got a lot of it from Gandhi, right? From Gandhi's inspiration about loving everybody. So, fear of others is a really important obstacle in all of our growths. And so we have to really face that fear. I'm going to tell you a story about my wife was a flight attendant for many years. And she got based Japanese language flight attendant. And so when she got hired, there were 5 Japanese language qualified flight attendants here in Honolulu, got hired by Pan Am, and they sent her to Brooklyn, right? And she had to live there flying out of JFK, but she was living in Brooklyn, living in an area called Queens. And these are all local girls. Some of them never been off the island, and all of a sudden they were in New York City, and they freaked, right? And so I decided, I was in school, but as soon as school got out, I decided I'd go and kind of hang out with them. You know, they had an apartment where all 5 where they were living. And so Susan said, you know, come and spend some time with us. And so I did. I was there for a few months. And so one time she was out flying, but there were 3 of them that were home, and they never went out. They were afraid. They just didn't go out of their, you know, like they'd go buy some food and they'd come right back home. And I'd say, let's go into Manhattan. And they go, oh, can we do that? Oh yeah, you can, let's go. And so I got them on the subway. We went down to Manhattan, and then we just started walking. I wanted to go to Little Italy, right? Coming from an Italian family, I wanted to go to Little Italy. We went to Little Italy, and we had some pizza, and we just walked around, and we were having a good time. We were walking all around, and before we knew it, it was dark. And not only was it dark, we were in the area where all the strip shows and the porn and all that stuff was going. I can't remember what the streets were, but all of a sudden I started looking at this, and I go, uh-oh, where are we? And they looked at this and they said, what are we doing here? And I said, I don't know. How do we get out of here? And across the street on the corner, I saw 3 black guys standing there, 3 African-American guys just standing there talking around at the corner, right? And they're kind of big. And I thought, you know what? God's in all of us, and I bet you they're going to help us. And I said, wait right here. And I told them to wait on the corner. And I went across the street, and I went right up to them, and I said, hey, bro, how you doing? And I shook all their hands, and they kind of looked at me like, what's going on? And I said, okay, here's the situation. We're here. We're staying in Brooklyn. See the 3 women over there? They're flight attendants, and they've been afraid to come into Manhattan. And I let them know that, you know, people here in Manhattan are like people everywhere. They're good people. And but we're kind of in a crazy place around here, as I think you know. I need to get them back home, so I want you to help me know how to find a subway. And they're kind of looking at me, and then all of a sudden one of them says, oh yeah, okay, well, so here's what you do. If you go down this street and you go down that, there's a subway like about, you know, and he's explaining it, and the other guy said, you don't want to send him that way. You know what could happen. You know, that'd be safer to go that other way. And the guy went, oh yeah, that's good. And the 3 of them got together, and they said, told us where the subway station was. And one of the guys says, do you want me to walk with you guys to make sure you get down there okay? And I said, no, listen, you've been awesome. They were wonderful. They were totally, and so I went across the street, I got them, we went to the subway, we got home, it was wonderful, right? We can't be afraid. We have to just live our lives and say, you know, beauty is everywhere. People are decent. People are wonderful everywhere. And it was an important lesson for them. You know, it was an important lesson, I think, for all of us, to be able to see the beauty, to see the divinity in all beings. That fear of the other hopefully we can get rid of, but you know what? There will always be racism. There will always be sexism. Why? Just like there'll always be first graders, right? It's not like all of a sudden one day everybody's going to have a PhD, and heaven forbid, that would be terrible, right? I think they can be really problematic. But anyway, there will always be people that are learning, right? There'll always be little people to learn, and there will always be people that have prejudices and fears and hatreds that they will eventually learn to get beyond, because that's what prejudice is. It's just a fear. It's a fear of the other. It's a fear of those that we don't understand. So let's talk about, there's a paradigm in dealing with issues of fear that, and I talk to my students about this. So what's the first fear? The fears that I just talked about: fear of falling, fear of loud noise, and fear of people who are different, fear of the other. As we grow up, our fears go from the present moment, and those are present moment fears, like right now, to fears of tomorrow. Oh, am I going to pass that test? Or is that girl going to go out with me? Or is that boy going to ask me to the dance? Or am I going to get a job? Or is this, or is that? And it's fear of the future, right? So fear of the future frames so much of our present moment. But like I said, the future never exists, right? It just never exists. Right now exists. Anything that hasn't happened, good chance it may not happen. Right now is happening, and that's all we know. And so if I can learn that today, that this moment is happening and it's good, what does that mean? My world is good, right? And if in the process I'm helping other people so that their world is also good, then my world is super good, right? You know how when we help somebody, the happiness that we get from helping them? Want to be happy? Go help somebody. Do something nice for somebody. Call up somebody you haven't talked to in a while. Just say, I was thinking about you and I just hope you're well. You can light up their day, right? So if we go through the process of realizing that our moments are wonderful if we make them, our moments are terrible if we make them. It's up to us. Shakespeare, there is no good or bad, but the mind that makes it so. People are not good or people are not bad, right? Some people are afraid and some people are not. And so in my life, things will come and things will go. I don't think I mentioned this last time I talked, but I decided to hitchhike to India, right? I was living in Hawaii. I had been in the Marine Corps, and I decided I wanted to go to India. I didn't have enough money to get to India, so I got as far as Europe, and I started hitchhiking. And so I went to Greece, and then Turkey, and Iran, and Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and I got sick along the way. In fact, I got deathly sick. I had dysentery, and I couldn't eat anything, and even if I drank water, I'd throw it up. And fortunately, I was traveling with a guy who I had met in Greece, who was from Ohio, and he was helping me, and we finally got to India, and I ended up in the hospital, and I was unconscious for several days, and I almost died, which was awesome, because what happened as a result of it, a taxi cab driver who heard about what was going on, and that it was May and it was 120 degrees in Delhi, and he said, "You're going to die in this weather. You need to go to the mountains." And his brother had a friend living in a village in the Himalayas, and he actually took me and my friend there. He said, "I got to get you out of here." And it was just something that he was inspired to do. And he took me up into this, and he left us in this village. He was there for about a day, got us a place to stay, and then he left. And I didn't see him for 20 years after that. It was amazing that I even saw him 20 years later. But anyway, and because I was living there, that's where I met my teacher. So if I hadn't got the desire to go to India if I had had the money, I wouldn't have gotten sick, which means none of this would happen. But because I didn't have the money, I had to go overland, which means I had to get sick. So I ended up in the hospital, which means it gave this guy an opportunity to do something decent and take me to the mountains. And I met my guru. So everything works out, right? And so we look at life and you just go, life's amazing, right? What should I fear? Well, in India, say there are 3 things that cause us suffering. Adibhautik, which means it comes from the earth. And what's on the earth? People. Somebody steals my car or does something like that, or I lose a job because somebody else took the job, or something happens in the earth, on the earthly realm. That's adibhautik. And they say that's maybe 5% of the suffering that we experience. Then there's adidevic, from the gods. What do they mean? A storm, a volcano, a tsunami, something like that, right? That's about another 5%. And then the last is adhyatmic, coming from the self. 90% of our suffering is in here, starts right here. Right? So if I want to get beyond suffering, and that's what we fear suffering, well, then where is it? It's right here. Where is its cause? It's right here. How do I get with it? How do I deal with it? Right here. I can't go to you to solve my problems. I can go to you to maybe ask you keys about maybe things that I can do in order to solve them. That's why we have teachers, right? Think about it when you go to Still and Moving Center, right? Or where you're doing a practice. At that moment, where are those fears? A lot of them are gone, right? You're involved and you're doing your movement, and there is maybe some peaceful music in the background, and then you're sitting and it's like, at this moment, life is good. Well, that's what we want all the time, right? You want to carry those practices, those sessions that you go to, you want to carry that with you. How do you do that? By the joy and the feelings that you get in moments of peace. Carry them with you, because they're yours. Nobody can take them away from you. So go do things that bring peace, and then carry those with you. One of the things that I do, and people think I'm kind of crazy for it, but it works, okay, is I go on every year, except for this last year, in November, there is an American Academy of Religion conference. And it moves around year, but whenever it's in the Northwest, especially on the East Coast, it's cold as all get out. And I've left here, and it's been 80 degrees, and I get to Philadelphia, and it's 10 degrees, right? And I oftentimes forget my jacket. I mean, I have a jacket. I don't know what, it's someplace in the closet, right? Whoever uses it here. And so I leave, and then I get on, and then my wife will say, "Oh, did you take your jacket?" Oh, I thought about it. A lot of times I forget it. But what I do is I just carry Hawaii with me. I just carry the warmth with me. And I go out, and I just think I'm in Hawaii. I'm in Hawaii. The sun is shining. Even if it's snowing, I'm just thinking the sun is shining, right? I can do that for about a week, and then I start getting really cold. But and I'm only there for like 5 days, so it's okay, right? But carry your love with you, carry your beauty with you, carry your warmth with you, carry your fearlessness with you. And that is really important, because really there isn't a lot to be afraid of that's outside you, right? Gandhi said the greatest strength is tyag. And what is tyag? Renunciation. The greatest strength is renunciation. So you can't steal anything from me if I don't have anything that I'm attached to, right? You can come and say, "I'm going to take your car." It's okay, right? So if I don't have attachment to possessions, you can't steal anything from me. you can't bribe me if I have no needs. You can't coerce me. You can't seduce me. You can't even threaten me. People said to Gandhi, we're going to kill you. He goes, okay, I got to die sometime. That's what he said. Got to die sometime, right? And that's why he was so powerful. The British were so upset at Gandhi because he had no fear. And why did he have no fear? Because he knew that every moment was fine. Every moment was good. He could find beauty and joy in every moment. Now, let's look at kids. And I know we've all had the opportunity to see films or documentaries or news from when there's a tornado, or like what happened in Haiti, and all these people's homes have been destroyed and there's people have died and stuff. And then you look out there and you see little kids and they're running around and playing because they haven't yet been warped with tomorrow. I was at a festival. There's these festivals called the Kumbh Mela festivals every 12 years in India, and they're huge. And there's 4 different places, and each of them have a 12-year cycle. So there's actually 4 Kumbh Melas every 12 years, right? And I was at a Kumbh Mela in a place called Ujjain in 2016. And I was there with a bunch of monks. We had a tent, huge tent. There were 13 of us in the tent. The tent was maybe, I'd say, 12 feet by 12 feet. It was just a square tent, you know. And there were 13 of us in there. But for monks, you don't need that much room, and you're fine. We had just eaten, and it was hot, and I was sitting at the door, and everybody's kind of sitting in there, maybe getting ready to take a nap or something. And I look out, and I see this wind coming, and I see clouds. And I said to them, you know, I think it's going to rain. And they said, oh, well, it'll be nice. It'll cool things down. And I said, yeah, I think there's going to be some wind too. And they went, oh, okay. And within about 2 minutes, the tent starts going like this. And they go, what's going on? And I said, it's coming. I didn't even know what it was, but I said, it's coming. Turned out to be a tornado. And there they call it a typhoon. Okay. The Hindi word is tufan, from where we got the word typhoon, right? And actually it's a Persian word, tufan. And the tent, so they were grabbing the bamboo sticks that were holding the tent, but within 2 or 3 minutes, the tent was gone. It just ripped away. It was gone. A third of the festival was destroyed in 15 minutes. Like what a tornado can do. A tufan can do the same. We were fortunate. We all survived. Nobody in our camp was killed, but there were people around that were killed. 15 minutes, it's gone. We kind of come out of wherever we had been tried to shelter, and the sadhus are looking around, and the first thing they said is, who's hungry? You know what? I bet you there's a lot of people hungry. We better start making some food. That's the first thing they thought of. What can we do to help the people who were there? And they did, and they scrounged around, find where the rice bags had been, if there was any rice, and a lot of it was now in the mud, and they tried to get it up and went over to the hand pump and started washing it off, and within an hour they were cooking to help the people. Why? Because they had no needs for themselves. They didn't need anything. So what do? Do something for them. They had no fear. And it was awesome. Yeah, it was such a beautiful experience. We all slept in the mud that night. It was great. You know,
That's a great story.
Yeah, it was awesome. And you just see this and you go, that's what life is about. It's like, you know, that old thing, you know, when it rains lemons, make lemonade kind of thing. And that's the approach that we kind of have to take into life, is that let's just let it happen. Okay, so anyway, fear. So let's get beyond our fears, and our fears are based in ignorance. or they're based in present moments, how we react to them. So we have to stop reacting. So they weren't reacting to it, they were responding to it. And that's the difference. When an event happens, a reaction is a knee-jerk kind of emotional thing. A response is a thought out. And that's what they thought. What can I do to help?
Ramdas, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you see if you can tell us what was it about the life of a sadhu, an ascetic, that got them to that place of fearlessness? You mentioned something about our fears coming from 3 different places, from the earth, the gods, and then adhyatma, or fearlessness, probably.
Yeah, so fear of, because inside I'm afraid. I'm afraid that somebody might hurt me, or that I might not get food, or that, but those are fears inside. They're not based in any reality necessarily, because that's all tomorrow, and tomorrow doesn't exist. Right now, I can be fine. And you think about how many people give them a wonderful meal and they go, great, yeah, but are we going to get another one? Okay, I got a job today, but am I going to get fired? So immediately we start projecting negativity into the future, and then we live it today, which means we're not enjoying the moment because we're too worried living about that. Sadhus learn to live in the moment.
Okay.
Just live now.
That's it. Yeah.
You just live now. What's happening right now? At this moment, all is good. Now we can talk about the tomorrow, but don't let tomorrow cause you suffering. You can think about it. You can say, okay, well, let's do this. The roof is leaking and the rains are coming. So yeah, let's work on it. But don't freak out. Just live each moment, right? And the thing about sadhus is they have nothing. Now, when you don't have anything, once again, Bob Dylan, when you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose. Just let everything happen. It doesn't matter. If I don't have nothing and somebody gives me something, I got more now than I had. All is good. Oftentimes in the years that I lived there, I had no money, right? And they didn't need it. Can't eat money, right? And I would just, and people in those days, if they saw a sadhu, they would say, anything I can do for you? Are you hungry? You want to eat something? Right? I mean, people would ask you that, right? I didn't need a place to stay. When you're tired, you sleep. You sleep. But when you do it, and what's interesting, because in the jungle, there's animals, right? And so now I shouldn't sleep too much near a lion den. That probably wouldn't be necessarily a good idea. So you become aware of what's going on in the jungle, and you look and you see tracks, and you know where the paths are that the animals take. And so you start learning those things. And so you're not afraid, right? You never hear about sadhus being attacked by animals in the jungle because they're not afraid. And animals sense your fear. And animals attack because if you're a fear, then it causes them to be afraid, and then they'll attack you. Carry your fearlessness with you. Know that everything is okay, and that there is a beauty that is happening in the world, and it's called life. And all those things that we are afraid of, and all those people that we are afraid of, those are all a part of life too. So if we can connect to the life in them, then life will be perpetuated. If we put out fear, they will feel it, and they will respond to it. Animals fear, plants fear, humans fear. If I want to get beyond fear, I need to get beyond thinking about tomorrow and just thinking about right now. And letting let right now be fulfilled. So that's what I was saying. Come to class. There you can do it, right? You're in class and you're doing, and you've got your movement going on, or you've got your stillness going on, or you're dancing or something, and you're learning how to be in the moment. Carry that momentness, that immediacy with you as you go out and do things in the world. Remember that beauty that was there.
Ramdas, could we open it up for
please,
folks
anytime
to ask questions, or maybe comment from each person's own life experience in terms of facing fear, and what has helped each of you? We had, as a nation, some things that could have caused people a lot of fear in the last week. We saw a lot of bravery, but want to open it up to the floor.
Lani,
Lani.
go. Lani, go.
Aloha, everyone. It's good to see you. So I had the honor of subbing for Miku for Kuan Yin meditation on the day that the Capitol was attacked, or however you want to interpret what happened. Some people might say that, other people might have a different view. I was really grateful that I was not paying attention to mainstream news. One of my resolutions this year has been to focus inward more and mindfully select alignments that resonate as true for me and avoid anything that is upsetting, that doesn't help, you know. So one of the practices, two of the practices that I do frequently in moments are Vipassana meditation, where you're aware of sensations, feelings, thoughts, and your breath, and just noticing fear come in and then it goes, and then it comes back and then it goes, various other things. And then also metta. And I was really grateful to facilitate with Kuan Yin channeled through me, compassion for ourselves and also for the people who were on that day so angry and out of their minds with whatever emotions they were feeling, the reality that they were experiencing. We did a beautiful practice together, and it was even more resonant. That's why I'm so grateful to be part of a community that is made up of beautiful beings who have different insights, different backgrounds, different ways of doing things. And together we're stronger because we're aware of our own shadow and light, I guess. I'm aware of my own propensity to project some of my own fear onto other people and then to take in fear from other people. So being really mindful of what I'm nourishing myself with. But I really appreciate your share. Thank you so much. It's lovely. I think I've met you once before, or maybe several lifetimes, but it's lovely to see you.
Yes, nice to see you again. Let me just say something very quickly about fear and hatred, because that's the paradigm, right? So it's ignorance and lack of knowledge leads to fear. Fear leads to resentment and hatred. And what we have been seeing, and it wasn't what was going on in the Capitol alone. What's been going on for the last year? What was happening in Minneapolis? What was happening in Seattle and in Portland? Hatred. It's a perpetuation of hatred. And it comes from fear. You're different, and I don't know what people like you are like, and I've been told that people like you are evil. And therefore, I'm going to fear you, and I'm going to hate you. And we got it going on both sides and on multiple sides. And that's what we're being taught by our politicians, to hate each other. Right? And we have to let go of that. We have to move away from that. So not watching the media, I don't listen to the news anymore. I'll find out what things are going to what's happening. You know, I listen to music and I read and I do my practices. And I think that that's what we need to do, and try to make each moment meaningful, and each moment deeper, and each moment truthful. Hate and truth are not the same thing. And you look at how much hate is being perpetuated today, and it's being perpetuated by everybody. I mean, it's not confined to one group. All the groups are hating the other groups. And so we have to step outside of those groups. I talk to my students about the boxes. Step outside those boxes. Don't live in a box of hate, whatever label's on it. Just don't live in a box of hate. Get outside, be free, love each other. Find a way to find goodness in absolutely everything that's happening.
Thank you. Kirk, I see you pensive over there. Do you have a thought you want to share?
Well, I was just reflecting on another saying of Gandhi's, which Ramdas has been I think, explaining that love and fear are opposite terms.
Yes, yes.
And that's why, and in fact, love, of course, he equated with nonviolence and with truth, and truth and nonviolence also being two sides of the same coin, two expressions of the same idea.
Yep.
But I, you know, having known about Gandhi and his teaching and having studied it deeply for many years since I was, you know, a young man, the application of that in practice is a lifetimes of effort, you know, and I think for me, I would say that that the theory is only as good as the practice, right? And this, I think, is also what part of what you're explaining to us, you know, and the way you started out, that everything you do is a practice.
Everything. Yeah.
And that it only becomes, those ideas only become real as you implement them, as you try them out, you know.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, and it requires this self-awareness, right? So here's this fear coming. Where is that fear coming from? What's at the root of it? What do I really want to be focusing on?
Yeah.
What do I want to bring to this situation rather than my fear? And how can what's the best way that I can do that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I'm very appreciative for your talk, and the examples you gave, I think, were really wonderful and deep. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah, fear is something we all have to work with, you know, and but there is no real reason to fear. There is far more reasons to love. And as Kirk mentioned, I mean, Gandhi, that's Gandhi's life. Gandhi was never afraid. I remember when after the partition and there was violence going on in Bengal and Calcutta, and people were killing each other, and he just went there in a Jeep, and he was standing up in the Jeep and he said, if you're going to kill anybody, kill me first. That's my fault. And everybody stopped. Right? What's this guy? What's he doing here? You know, I mean, they knew who he was, but it's like, doesn't he realize that he could be killed? Yeah, he realized he could be killed, and he didn't care because he was trying to express his love for all of them. That's why he decided to go to Pakistan to celebrate their new year, their new day with them, because he was saying they're my brothers and sisters, just like the people of India. And that's why he was killed, you know, by somebody who hated. And that's what we have to get beyond. We have to get beyond the hatred. You know, too many of us justify hating those who are different. And we have to really learn. We have to really learn that we're all not different.
Let me call on Miku and get some thoughts from that corner.
I've been really appreciating the dialogue so far, and really appreciating the reflection on fear, and trying to look at my own life and my own fear. And when I think about these kinds of emotions, I associate them with something I call the wounded self, which is not the most popular term, but that there are like 5 biggies: overwhelm, loneliness, shame, fear, and then one other that I always forget, like the 5th one, but that it'll come to me later. But when I think about these things, I often reflect on like what's my big one right now in my life, and in my life, what are the things that have stuck with me? And I feel like fear is one that, for various reasons, I feel blessed to not have experienced that so much as others. Like when I think of them, I go to overwhelm or shame. Those are like my biggies in terms of the patterns I experience. And I was telling Shaoshu, I grew up in Alaska. I grew up where there are bears, and there's like, I can get eaten, and this is a real reality that I'm walking with. And I grew up in that world. So when I'm anywhere else, even though there is fear, it just doesn't feel the same because I'm kind of comparing it to a fight flight sensation that I've really experienced on an animal level. But one thing I do fear, especially if it's present for me right now, is loss. So fear associated not with doing or acts of doing in the world, but more like fear of loss of something so precious to me. And then I go right to attachment, and then attachment to suffering. But fear of loss of loved ones is kind of where I'm at right now. And I've just made a big jump to living in Hawaii here. But there's a fear that I'm carrying of like, oh no, will this affect my husband specifically in a negative way? It feels, of all the things to be afraid of, I'm not fearing failure or fearing that it won't work. I feel ready to take that jump. I'm ready. But I do fear it harming someone I love. And so that, I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that. This, not the fear of doing, but more the fear of losing.
It kind of reminds me, as you speak, Miku, of reading about fear of God. That is the only thing to be afraid of is, and when I think of that, to me, what that means, like I hear you talk about not just the fear of loss, but that you might be responsible for it by, encouraging this move that might be damaging to someone else. And then you could be the one who caused it. And that to me is kind of like that fear of God that you may have done wrong. I'm wondering about this concept, fear of God, if that's what it means, is like fear of our own conscience. And that's a greater fear than even fear of death. So like fear of having done something at a soul level that is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add something. Growing up, my mother was my closest friend. I was the youngest child, and so when my brother and sister were in school, my mom, and so she would go to work. She was a maid, and I would go with her, right? So we were best friends from the time I was like 3 years old. And when all my travels, the years I spent in India, she was the only person not in India who I communicated with because she was my friend. And the relationship stayed, even though we only communicated rarely. Now we communicate less rarely. Well, actually communicate more now that she doesn't have a body, right? We communicate all the time. I got her picture right there. And it's this a picture of a time that we were together, and I talk with her every day, right? So love doesn't go away. So we don't lose love. And that's really what I think what probably you really want, and what we all really want is the love. So never think, if it is love doesn't die, right? So you will never lose that as long as you keep it in your heart, right? The body may, so it's like my daughter is, has just got a job in Tokyo. So she leaves next month. She lives here in Hawaii. She lives 3 miles away. We eat together. Either they come over to our house or we go over to their house every day, right? So we eat together 6 to 7 days a week. And now she's going to Japan, and she's going to be in Japan for probably at least about 3 years. We're not losing her. We're not going to have meals with her every day, but we're not losing her, right? The love will always be there, and we'll connect. And if you connect one way or the other, but as you know, love is in here. Nobody can take that away from you. And so just hold on to that, and to know that whatever, those who I love are with me, and my love is with them, and it will always be, and it will give you the strength, and make it your strength. It is my strength. And I'm going to move forward because I am loved and because I love.
Mary, do you have something to share with us?
Are you telepathic? Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. And I was just thinking about the times when I thought I was going to die and I didn't die. And that because we've been through some experiences, we're not afraid of, I'm not afraid to die. And I tell Malia all the time, I said, if I were to die tomorrow, if I were to die today, just know I love you. So love is really the most important thing. So Miku, you're surrounded by love. People love you and you love them. And those who are most important to you will know that you love them. So thank you. Amen.
David?
Take a deep breath and step into it. That's my formula.
Nice. Nice.
Lean into it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a mindfulness practice. Just observe, oh, this is fear, and there's something to be done here.
Sadhus, one of the practices is face your fear, is actually face your fear. So Miku, you talked about bears. I lived in the Himalayas, and we had brown bears and black bears. And the brown bears were twice as big as the black bears, and the black bears were twice as deadly as the brown bears. And so one of the things that we would do is go up in the forest where the bears were and sit there. Right? To just say, I'm not afraid, and to live it, and to just practice it, you know. And I can remember a time sitting there in the forest and I would hear something rustling and say, well, I'm here. And if you're here, bear, I hope you're fine. Right? And just deal with it. I mean, just allow life to happen. Fear never solves anything. It just makes life worse. And yet we all seem to carry it around with us, right? And so as soon as you can let it go, because you have something, I mean, as you were just told, you have a lot of love to replace it. There's no need. You shouldn't leave room in your heart for fear, right? Fill it with that love, the love coming to you and the love you're giving out, and just don't make room for fear. And then it won't be there anymore.
Ramdas,
Yes, sir. Okay.
Thank you so much for everything you mentioned.
Yeah.
I find I have a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when one has at least perceived obligations to others.
Mm-hmm.
And you might have to make a difficult decision. You don't know. You may not, in fact, if you're making a judgment, by definition, you don't know whether you've made the right judgment until it's over. Otherwise, you're not making a judgment, right? And so there's this anxiety that, and I keep milking it in my mind and marinating it. And, part of that is kind of a positive deliberation, I think, trying to sort out, well, maybe tomorrow I won't be as anxious as I am today, so I might see things more clearly. But could you say something about having to make decisions that involve obligations?
Yeah.
And when you don't know if you're going to make the right decision? So their anxiety creeps in, the cousin of fear.
Sure. Two issues. First of all, my guru told me, never promise, never make any commitment. Never make any commitment unless you're willing to die to support it. So when somebody says, oh, will you do this for me, Maurice? You say, I'll do it tomorrow. No, say, if I get the opportunity, then I will do it tomorrow. Always allow that. But if you make a commitment to somebody, if you tell them I'm going to do it tomorrow, then you better do it, right? So we should allow that. Just say, well, if it happens, right? And I'll let people know that you want to help them, or you do something, if it can happen. And I tell my students, email me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Sometimes that's a month, right? And they've come to understand that. But the other thing was another story. My teacher, I went to my teacher one day. This is when I was a sadhu. And I really had to make this decision. I don't even have no idea what it was about now. But at the time, it was really important to me, I thought. And I said to him, so should I do A or B? I didn't say A or B, whatever it was, because I don't even remember what it was. So I can't tell you what it was. But it was either A or B. And I said, should I do A or should I do B? I'm really concerned about this. And he goes, okay, go 10 years in the future from now and look back. Which one do you think you would have preferred to choose? And I said, well, probably 10 years from now, it won't matter. And he says, then it doesn't matter now. Right? Like, don't sweat the small stuff. And too often we do. We just get hung up on the little meaningless, what we call the manini stuff, right?
Put it in perspective.
Exactly.
Maurice, I wonder whether we might be able to call on you to give Ramdas a vote of thanks on our behalf for his presentation today.
Just lovely. First, thank everyone who came today for their wonderful contributions and questions. And Ramdas, I think you were just kind of a fount of wisdom from your own experience. And it really set off sparks of insight and kind of ahas and broaden our perspective. And what more can one ask for 1 hour of gems of wisdom? So
yeah.
All of us just really want to thank you.
Well, in response, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you, because if you weren't all here, I would have been doing something else. And this way, you gave me an opportunity to talk about things that are close to the heart and close to truth. And you gave me a chance to share a lot of love and light with all of you and receive a lot of love and light from all of you too. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Maurice, also, as well as Ramdas. Just marvelous.
Great.
We're moving from this topic to next week's topic of entering sacred space. So we faced our fear and now we're ready to enter sacred space.
Perfect.
We address that. And Miku's going to give us a presentation in that regard. And we'll look forward to seeing all of you next week. And thank you so much, Ramdas.
Thank you, Renee, and thank everyone. Goodbye.
Aloha.
Aloha.